honestly, I would probably go no contact over this. I would not be trying to bridge the gap. I wouldn't be trying to involve her in my life beyond this point. If she, especially this part of she excluded her then from the birthday party, she hasn't spoken to her since. I just think that I would be like, okay, you know what? If you're not ready to have me or my baby in your life, then that's kind of it. And maybe at some point she will have processed things enough herself that she can kind of move on and you can be close again. But I wouldn't hold my breath. And I think, believe it or not, there are pregnancy stories on Reddit too. So that's what we'll be covering today. Our first one is titled, Am I the a-hole for not cleaning up after my nephew and making my pregnant sister do it? I, 28 years old, female, live with my husband, 32 male, and we have no children. We finally bought our own home and moved in last month. My sister Tess has a son who's 8 years old, and they came over for the first time yesterday. My husband wasn't at home, so it was just us three there. Tess is currently 7 months pregnant with her second child. The issue started with my nephew asking me where the bathroom was. I showed him. He was in the bathroom for about 2 minutes and he came out and everything was fine until I went in there. I went in and he peed on the floor and the toilet seat instead of in the actual toilet. There was a lot. I come out asking Tess to come in here and I showed her. I asked her if she can clean up and she said she was way too tired to clean and asked me to do it. I told her that it is disgusting and she is capable of cleaning up after her son. She then told me if I was being serious and that she's pregnant and it's hard to clean up. I asked her what she does at her home and if she even cleans there, and she got pissed at me and reluctantly cleaned it up. Tess eventually left. She gave me a cold look before she left and hasn't spoken to me since, besides the text F off. Word got to my mum and I got a call from her telling me that she cannot believe that I'd make Tess do that and that I'll never understand pregnancy. She knows I'm child-free and I don't understand how tiring it is to be pregnant. I feel like I'm going crazy here. My husband agrees with what I did, but my mum and sister are not happy with me. Am I the a-hole? This is going to be totally random, but honestly, the fact that this person is incapable of writing and sticking with the same tense, so in terms of like present tense and future tense and past tense, just really irritates me. It's like really, really terrible English, very annoying to read. That said, I do not think that OP is the a-hole here, fundamentally because I think an 8-year-old child is actually old enough to clean up after themselves, and it is the sister's responsibility to figure out how to, I don't want to say discipline because that seems a little bit extreme for me, what was probably an accident, I assume. But in terms of teaching the kid that he needs to clean up after himself and that, you know, he should go to the toilet in a way that doesn't make a mess for everyone else, I think that that's on the sister. 7 months is pretty late pregnancy, relatively uncomfortable. Is it going to be the best time to clean up a toilet? No, it's not really the best time to clean up a toilet. Would I do it in my home? Probably not. I would be asking my husband to do it. But would I be doing it in someone else's house if my kid had made a mess there? Yes. So I think that that's really the thing. Obviously, OP could have been nice about it. I don't think you needed to fight over it. I think that there's always this conflict that I think happens a lot with child-free people where they just hate kids and they don't want to deal with them and they don't want to be around them, and they have this really intense like, oh, it's the parents' fault. And yes, in a lot of cases it is the parents' fault that the kids suck. So yeah, in this situation, I think what would have actually been the nicest outcome would have been for the sister to walk in and be like, okay, you know what, this isn't cool for my son. Call the 8-year-old son back, ask him to clean up, and that would be it. And then neither the pregnant woman would have had to do it, nor the person whose house it is, who does not deserve to have to clean up after her nephew. And then it's kind of nice and simple and easy. I think it's one of those situations where, yes, honestly, if you were a really caring sister, then it would like I would have done it for my sister. For example, if my sister was pregnant and she was tired and it was my nephew, then I would have done it. But I think that is going out of your way to be nice. It does not make you an a-hole if you decide not to do that. The next one, best friend acting like she's pregnant too. Maybe I'm just over hormonal, but it's bugging me. I'm pregnant, she's not. I mention how sore my boobs are. She says, that's how mine feel when I'm on my period. I mention how tired and exhausted I am. She says, me too. I mention that I'm thinking I might not breastfeed. She says, I'm not going to either. I mention I'm feeling nauseous. She says, I am too. I feel like I can't even talk about my pregnancy without her trying to relate or make it about her. Just wanted to rant. Now, this is actually super common. This is not even only super common when it comes to pregnancy. It's super common across the board. I think a lot of people have this urge where you tell them something and then they respond by saying something about themselves that they think relates, or they're like, okay, you know, I've had the same experience. And so then they go into their own experience. It is a terrible habit to have from like just a regular conversation perspective, just because it's one of the ways that people just don't feel heard. They feel like you're very, very concerned with your own self instead of concerned with them. So in general, I would recommend for everyone out there, if people are sharing things like sharing whatever life experience with you, and you want to give them the impression that you care about them and you relate to their problem, then actually the best thing to do would be to ask them follow-up questions and to just be sympathetic, and then just try very, very, very hard to stamp down this urge to be like, oh yeah, me too. This is kind of hilarious though. And she says things like, that's how mine feel when I'm on my period. Like, whenever people compare pregnancy to things like being on your period or having a dog or any of these things, I just always think just please stop. Please stop. It's so annoying. And you can see some of the comments here. A lot of people have similar experiences. This person says, I think she's trying to relate. My best friend does this sometimes. She never wants kids, so I don't think she knows how to converse with me sometimes about it. When I had a miscarriage 6 to 7 months ago, I was telling her about the cramping and the pain, and she was like, I totally get it. I have terrible periods. Oh God. I had to really hold myself back from saying something with that one. It's annoying. I'm glad you have us to vent to, so you don't take that into your friendship. Now, see, this is exactly like one of those circumstances where I'm just like, how do you even do this? Like, this is terrible. This is terrible. Like, that's just a terrible statement to make. But again, if you say it's coming from a nice place, I know my friend, I know she didn't mean it that way. Like, you're a great friend, and I'm glad you didn't take it personally, but I would flip out. And the next one says, haha, this reminds me of my sister. She got a puppy a few months after I had my first, and literally anytime I said anything, she'd be like, oh my God, I totally understand how you feel, because my puppy barked all night, my puppy pooped on the floor, my puppy does this and that and the other thing. It's just like having a baby. Literally used to drive me up the wall. Like, kind of felt invalidating. Oh, I haven't slept for more than an hour straight for the last 3 months, and my nipples are bleeding still, but your puppy barked a few times in his kennel and woke you up. Poor you. I stopped venting to her. I also realized she just wanted to relate to me, even if it's in the most irritating way. God, you know, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah. In many ways, I actually don't even think that they're wrong. There are some similarities between having a puppy and having a baby, and that is fundamentally the aspect of having something, a living thing that depends on you for all of its needs. That you can't control in any particular way, especially like when it's a puppy. Then the puppy just needs your attention and needs to go outside pretty often, and you need to feed it and so on. Like, this is pretty similar in some ways to a baby, but there's definitely something about saying it to someone who's a new mother, who's really struggling. And honestly, the experience of having a baby is really not comparable to a puppy in that sense. Like, beyond that, it seems like you can compare them when you haven't had a baby yet. But honestly, I think once you've had a baby, you're like, oh yeah. You know, that puppy stuff, that was just this. And yeah. It's not really comparable. And so generally speaking, just having this urge of being like, oh yeah, I know exactly how you feel, because it makes you feel like you're relating to someone. You're not. Sometimes you can't relate, and sometimes it's okay to not be able to relate. And in 90% of circumstances, it's better to just be like, oh no, I'm really sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help you? Or have you thought about this? Or whatever, depending on how someone is coming to you with that conversation. If they're just venting, just let them vent in peace, and stop filling your own things in there. The next one says, my wife can't be intimate with me due to the smell of cigarettes. My wife is 6 months pregnant and recently became extremely sensitive to the smell of cigarettes, vanilla, and vinegar. I would say that this started happening 3 weeks ago, and since I smoke, we haven't been intimate that whole time. That includes kissing. Sure, a small peck on the cheek is okay, but actually kissing her is a no way. I've become very good at masking the smell over the years, but damn, pregnancy noses really sense everything. We even tried this thing where I just don't smoke, and I washed all the clothes I was wearing, but nope, didn't work. She really, really can't stand these 3 smells, and it really beats her up. My daughter is a baker and hasn't baked for the past 2 weeks because my wife can't stand the smell. Wondering if we should find loopholes, or should we just not be intimate until this passes? Now, I don't actually have a lot of advice for this because I could not share space with any person who smokes on a regular basis. Like that would mess me up. I also think the smell of cigarettes is disgusting. I am also extremely sensitive to it despite not being pregnant, and I was way more sensitive to it when I was pregnant as well, and it still irritated me when I had a colleague who would be smoking like 20 meters away from me. It would still irritate me. So yeah, I get it. I think honestly, smokers just really underestimate exactly how much smoke just permeates everything. Like it gets stuck in your nails. I'm pretty sure if you sniffed your fingers, you would be able to smell it. I'm pretty sure it gets stuck on your teeth as well. You can brush your teeth as much as you like. It's still gonna smell like smoke. Like it's still gonna be disgusting. It's just it's just awful. So yeah, poor OP. I honestly don't think you can save it. I think you can do things like get your teeth cleaned. Quitting is a really good idea. I would just have completely quit the moment that she got pregnant. But yeah, okay, you know, everyone makes their own decisions. If that's what makes you happy, I just think yeah, not really avoidable. I don't think that you can get rid of the smell properly, to be honest. Both in terms of your house, your car, your clothes, and yourself. Like I think you have to stop smoking for a really, really, really long time in order to like just to be able to get rid of the smell completely. And so if she's that sensitive to it, then I'd probably say you can't really avoid it until she somehow becomes less sensitive to it. But you know, I'd be curious to hear if anyone does have any loopholes for this, because I don't think that you can't be intimate with her holding her nose shut. Like that's not gonna work, right? So you're just gonna have to move on. The next one, am I the a-hole for wanting my pregnant wife to do the dishes? So my wife is just about 17 weeks pregnant with twins. In the beginning, there were some issues and she didn't do a thing. I mean, even having a shower once a week was a struggle. Now, the doctors are basically telling her she needs to be more active. I'm in university, but also working part-time. I'm currently writing my dissertation, and so I'm a bit busy. Yesterday, I came home after being out all day to find the dishes that I didn't do the night before, my bad, after I finished cooking. And my wife had seen them and just didn't want to touch them. She ordered her lunch instead of cooking and waited for me to come home and clean the dishes before I cooked dinner. But because I was a bit angry and I told her I was, after I finished cooking dinner, she refused to eat it, saying she didn't want to clean, and I said I'd clean up. I'm just curious, am I being insensitive because she's pregnant and she shouldn't do anything? My wife doesn't work or study. The dishes were from a meal I'd cooked for the both of us the previous night. Now, Reddit actually came down pretty hard on this guy and called him the a-hole. I think that there's no real a-hole in this situation. I would probably say that yeah, if it's agreed that you should be cleaning the dishes after you cook, then you should clean the dishes after you cook. Again, it's totally normal when someone's pregnant to be like, okay, maybe we need to change things up, and the normal routine that we have is not the same. I think it's also fair enough to say, okay, I didn't have a chance to do it last night, so I would expect the person that's staying at home to do it the next day. And I don't think that there's any problem with that. What I do think OP is kind of missing out on here and probably doesn't quite understand is being pregnant with twins is very, very different from normal pregnancy for the vast, vast, vast majority of women. Especially when it says in the beginning, there were some issues and she didn't do a thing. I mean, even having a shower once a week was a struggle. Yeah, that's not abnormal for people who are pregnant with twins. Like, especially the first trimester is really, really, really tough on women who are pregnant with twins, usually because, it's hormonal. The pregnancy hormone that you test for and so on is the one that causes nausea. Is something like double, if not higher, the amount that it usually is in a pregnancy with one baby versus a pregnancy with 2 babies. And so for as long as you don't have a placenta and the body's really investing a lot of resources in both building the placenta and caring for nourishing the new lives, plural, that are growing there, it's really, really intense and really draining. And so under those circumstances, I would probably say, yeah, I would not expect to be doing very much around the house. 17 weeks, I mean, he says that it's gotten better. 17 weeks, it may be better, but honestly, I don't know that dishes is really the thing that I would be able to handle at 17 weeks pregnant with twins. I would really question that, both in terms of like the smell, standing in one position for a long period of time. Like that was something that I couldn't do when I was pregnant. pretty late pregnancy, so not at 17 weeks. At 17 weeks I was completely fine, but just this, some things are just not very comfortable and not very nice. And if it's not a big deal for you to just wash the dishes, then I would go ahead and wash the dishes, or try and get a dishwasher, which makes life so much easier. So yeah, I think that's really the main thing that's probably missing from here. It isn't even about how you split chores or whether it's fair to expect her to do it or not. I think it's just one of those situations where if I were her and my husband came home after a long day at work and the kitchen was a mess and he needed to cook, I'd be like, look, I'm really sorry. I just didn't have the energy to clean up the kitchen today. Maybe I can help you with A, B, C, D when it comes to preparing food while you wash the dishes. And then we would have done it together, and then we would have both moved on, and it wouldn't have exploded into this kind of fight, which I think is really unfortunate and unnecessary for a lot of people. So Reddit thinks that OP here is the a-hole. I do not agree. I think that it's just unfortunate that the knee-jerk response is to get annoyed. I really hate this line that he says here about how the doctor suggests that she needs to be more active. Like, yeah, you know what? Washing the dishes does not make her more active. I'm sorry. And chores in general is not what I would be like, oh, okay, you're getting more active by doing more chores around the house. I would consider being more active to be something like going out for a 10-minute, 15-minute walk on a daily basis, doing some stretches and things like that. Like that's the level of activity that I think that I would assume the doctors mean. And having this excuse and being like, oh, the doctors are saying it's a good idea for her to do dishes, I don't think that's right. So OP, I think you're reaching a little bit, and I suspect that you don't have quite enough empathy for your pregnant wife. But I think that that's mostly just kind of motivated by ignorance, and so it's just not understanding what it's like more than anything else. The final one is titled, My Sister Reacted So Negatively and I'm Crushed. I'm only 7 weeks, 2 days pregnant, so we didn't want many people knowing yet, but my fiance made a funny, subtle comment to me and she picked up on it. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. Me and my fiance own our own home, are financially independent, are 28 and 30, have been together for almost 11 years, and are getting married in April. We're not rich, but we can live comfortably and treat ourselves pretty freely. I had 4 doctors tell us this was impossible. Saying we're happy is an understatement. I don't believe anyone is ever 100% ready, but we're more than ready enough. My sister, she's 24 by the way, knows all of this. She started lecturing us about how we're idiots and this is nothing but a financial burden, and how she hopes it goes away, i.e. miscarriage. She hasn't really spoken to me since, not even at my bridal shower. She also just sent everyone in the family invites to her birthday party except me, and she explicitly told our other sister that she doesn't want me there. My sister isn't going to contribute financially. No one but me and my fiance are. Obviously, it's our very first planned child. I'd never ask her to babysit. This baby really won't affect her at all. I don't understand her reaction. We were so close, so I'm heartbroken. I wasn't expecting any negative reactions to this pregnancy. Also, she knows miscarriages run in our family, so for her to wish one on me, I have no words. This is really awful. This is really dark. I don't know why people are so evil about miscarriages, to be honest. I suspect that it comes from this attitude that we have towards abortion, where we kind of think that it's okay and acceptable, and that it isn't really a human life. And so somehow people have the same perception a little bit when it comes to miscarriage, where they think, okay, it's not that a woman who goes through a miscarriage feels like she lost a child, which for the vast majority of women who go through a miscarriage, that's very much what they feel like. And losing a pregnancy is completely heartbreaking. And a really awful experience. So that sounds awful. I would also be crushed if my sister said anything like this to me. That said, I think that the sister here has some kind of issue. We'll go down to the comments and see, because OP adds a bunch of context to this, but already you can tell the level of bitterness, the vitriol, the anger, this idea of you're idiots and babies are nothing but a financial burden. That sounds to me like someone who has a lot of bitterness towards the idea of having kids. And wherever that bitterness comes from, so in the majority of cases, I would probably say it comes from something like being child-free and regretting it. having to deal with infertility issues, or as is the case here, having previous failed pregnancies and trying to, I say failed pregnancies, in this case it's abortion, and not having processed all of the feelings that going through abortions can have on a person as well. So this is rude. This really sucks. Honestly, I would probably go no contact over this. I would not be trying to bridge the gap. I wouldn't be trying to involve her in my life beyond this point. If she, especially this part of she excluded her then from the birthday party, she hasn't spoken to her since, I just think that I would be like, okay, you know what, if you're not ready to have me or my baby in your life, then that's kind of it. And maybe at some point she will have processed things enough herself that she can kind of move on and you can be close again. But I wouldn't hold my breath. And I think that's really heartbreaking for a lot of people. And I understand why it is heartbreaking. Of course it is, especially if you were really close, because it feels like you lost something pretty severe and you have to grieve that as a loss. But I don't think it's really all that avoidable. Now, you can see here some of the comments. I'm not the only person that thought this. This person says, the only thing I can imagine is that perhaps she's gotten an infertility diagnosis or has had a loss in secret. I'm just speculating, though. That is such a bizarre and despicable thing to say. Regardless, I'm sorry for her ugliness, but congratulations on your pregnancy. We're all happy for you here. And then OP replies, she has PCOS too, but has been pregnant 4 times and chose to terminate. I think that's something I can't even begin to sort through because I've never been in that position. It crossed my mind that maybe she regrets her decision deep down, and I'd be willing to talk to her about it, but I won't bring it up first. And then OP also adds, she was in an abusive relationship at the time. I can't imagine how hard her life and decisions were, but that's no reason to be cruel to me. Now, 4 pregnancies and 4 abortions at age 24 sounds rough. Sounds real rough. I obviously know nothing about the circumstances, and I know nothing about her situation, why it ended up in that way. And OP says that she was in an abusive relationship, so who knows, who knows what happened there. But I can imagine definitely having quite a lot of trauma from that as an experience and not having an easy time dealing with pregnancy afterwards. So that really sucks, really awful. Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where you just have to accept how people are and how people's experiences are, and you have to move on with your own life and make your own decisions for yourself. That's all we have time for today. Feel free to like the video, leave a comment, or subscribe for future content, and I will see you in the next one.